Coming up on today's video.
Some have asked, does Ms. Mongeau have a case against Good Times and Michael? Well, this was really sort of shame-con, wasn't it? I mean, after all, there were a whole bunch of people that came just to see him. So the story goes, shouldn't he pay something out of his pocket to make things right? There may be a claim by that person for compensation for her injuries. Then if anyone sues, that's called the plaintiff, they probably don't have to prove much else other than that the capacity was exceeded. That's what we call in the law negligence per se.
And Jeffrey, you have to do my intro first.
What do you mean?
Oh, hey, pretty girl, like you have to do the intro for the audience.
Oh, hey, pretty girl, I didn't see you there.
You're on Mango Tea, you have to do it. Action.
Hey there, pretty girl, I didn't see you there. What do you have? You have the drama? Tell me the drama.
Do you have drama for Daddy? Tell me the drama.
Oh, thank you, Drama Poodle. I had no idea.
Oh, my goodness, Drama Poodle, I had no idea about that. Thank you for telling Daddy the drama.
All right?
You have to welcome them, too.
What do you mean, welcome them?
To Mango Tea.
Welcome to Mango Tea.
Welcome to Mango Tea.
Mango Tea. Made in China, bitch.
Good evening, friends, and welcome back to Mango Tea. I'm coming to you directly from television land to comment on the big Tana video that was released day before yesterday.
And now it's time for Past Me to walk you through Tanacon in my shoes.
Now, as many of you know, the disaster known as Tanacon has spawned many a commentary, and on this very channel, you've seen me discuss how to get your refund from Tanacon if you purchased a ticket. Moreover, what the legal and factual implications of the whole situation are, what the fallout will be, and who's responsible. So in response to that, I reviewed the entire Tanacon video that Ms. Tana Mongeau provided us with. And I want to give a little disclaimer here. There are several people that have corrected me on my pronunciation, and they're absolutely right. E-A-U in French is O, not E. And I think I just got a little carried away with my emphasis and, frankly, trying to manipulate the pronunciation. And in my brain, it was looking like M-O-N-G-E-A-U-X, which still would be an O pronunciation, but forgive me, I haven't lived in France since the Ayatollah Khomeini left town. So, on the Tana situation, I saw the whole hour video, and this is just my opinion. Some of it you're not going to like, some of it you may. Unlikely you'll like all of it. In any event, let's start from the get-go with the Tana video that took several weeks to make, apparently.
I have now been off of social media for over a month now, which is the longest break I have taken in over 3 years.
First of all, the capacity issue, 3,192. I understand if you have a capacity in a ballroom of 3,192, folks and the venue may lead you to believe that you actually have some more because the hallways can hold 50, this room can hold 100, that foyer can hold 250. But if 5,000 people are coming and they're all going to be in a main stage venue, you need to have 5,000 available spaces. You've seen those signs that the fire department put up, space not to exceed X number of people. That's what they have to follow. Before we get into any other specifics, I should make it clear that Ms. Mongeau is 19 years old, and this is not an excuse for her, but I do believe that she was naive and didn't really think things through clearly, and younger people tend to have less inhibitions towards going for something that they think is a good idea at the time rather than sitting back and reflecting on it. So this is something to keep in mind as to how she might have been hornswoggled in believing certain things that turned out not to be true. So why is the capacity thing such a big deal? Here's why. if there's a fire, if there's a stampede of little girls who want to see Tana and someone's injured, the fact that there's too many people for the venue or the space can create significant legal liability. It can create liability for the hotel and the venue. It can create liability for Good Times, and it can create liability for Tana herself. Thank heavens it doesn't appear anyone was seriously injured or hurt. They did show some lady coming out in a stretcher moaning. I'm not sure what her ailment was at the end of the day, but there may be a claim by that person for compensation for her injuries if she sustained any on the premises or as part of the Tana experience. So this is why the capacity is an important issue. If the capacity is exceeded even by one, then if anyone sues, that's called the plaintiff, they probably don't have to prove much else other than that the capacity was exceeded. That's what we call in the law negligence per se. There was a rule that you violated, someone got hurt, and no matter what your other excuses are, you can be held legally liable. The next thing we're going to be addressing today is the whole ticketing sales.
5,000 tickets were sold or given away for Tanacon. I was told that 4,000 of those tickets would be free and 1,000 of them would be sold to cover costs of the event. And
now, I heard her say at one point in the video, I could be wrong, it was a long video, but I seem to have this recollection, and I don't want to put too much emphasis on it because I've noticed a lot of these YouTubers fixate on any little small contradiction and then it's a big dramatic thing. I thought she said that 4,000 of the tickets were free and 1,000 of them were going to be paid. But then later on, I thought I heard her say that we'd sold out of the paid tickets and we'd sold 4,000 of them. So if you sold 4,000 of them, 4,000 of them cannot be free because then they're not sold. You would say they're given away. Again, I don't want to put too much emphasis on it, but it did raise the antenna a little bit. Why is this important? Well, the whole pitch that she's been giving everyone is that she is a victim of the situation as much as anybody else, that she was bamboozled by Michael, and that she didn't know any better. And I'll give you my thoughts as to whether that's true or not, or what my opinion is on that. But if you're making the argument that you've been bamboozled by some Svengali, who's Michael, then it's odd that she would say 4,000 of them were free, 1,000 sold, at one point in the video, and then later on say 4,000 were sold. Next, let's talk about the issue of whether flights and hotels will be refunded and or paid. I believe Tana mentioned that she's going to make every effort to refund people that had what we call in the law ancillary expenses, flights, hotel rooms. In this case, because it's a venue with essentially a concert, the ancillary expenses are going to be larger than the tickets. Clearly, the tickets were $77 for a VIP creator, but it could cost several hundred to several thousand if you came from overseas to see the convention. Whenever there are large numbers of people who have been damaged, it's very difficult to determine whether a person should get compensation, and if so, how much. Frankly, anybody could say, well, I was only in town for this and I stayed at the Ritz-Carlton and I had caviar and lobster because that's all I'm permitted to eat by my doctors. Therefore, you have to pay for all of that. But it's very hard to determine who was there anyway and who wasn't there, who flew in and who didn't fly in, who had hotel expenses and for how much. Often there's an administrator appointed to examine all the claims. This is what they did, for example, in the 9/11 situation. Clearly a different animal in both severity, tragedy, loss of life, loss of support. But this, I'm just using this as an example as to how claims could be administered. They might want to hire, or Tana might want to hire an administrator who would take written claim forms, analyze them, determine how much money there was available to reimburse folks, and on a pro rata basis refund people by the amounts that they submitted in terms of receipts or provable damages. Still, it's going to be a complicated, time-consuming practice, and it has a lot of opportunity for abuse and for fraudulent claims, and it has the potential of awarding people money who don't deserve it and denying other people who do deserve it. The question has arisen, can someone sue Tana for those ancillary expenses? I don't know if you've heard this from me before, but it's an old chestnut I bring out. Here's what you have to understand. Anyone can sue anyone for anything. I can sue you because I don't like your purple shirt. Am I going to win? Probably not. You might want to sue me because I'm wearing a pink shirt. Are you going to win? Probably not. So anyone can sue anyone for anything. I don't know what all that beeping noise is. It's more that technology that you people like so much. Oh, can anyone sue Tana for this? They could. I don't think it would be worth it. Even if you had a good case, that you flew in, that you had a hotel bill, your best bet would be to sue in small claims court. But guess what? In order to sue in small claims court, you have to sue in the California small claims court. How are you going to do that effectively if you live in Ireland or you live in Boston or some other remote place? You're going to have to spend more money to fly in to attend the small claims hearing. And guess what? That money that you spend to attend the small claims hearing is not part of the damages that you can get and recover. So you're sort of chasing the tail of the donkey, as we say. It would be financially unwise to pursue Ms. Mongeau in this way. The next thing I wanted to address is if someone had been seriously injured, or even that lady carried out on the gurney, would the security company be responsible? Let me explain something about California law. When someone's injured in a hotel, for example, the plaintiff will usually sue as many people as possible. So they'll name the hotel, the promoter, i.e. Good Times, Ms. Mongeau, the security company, the janitorial company if they slipped and fell, the catering company if they got sick on the food. There's no limit to whom people won't sue. That's the whole deal with the security situation. Another issue which people have asked about is the responsibility of Ms. Mongeau relative to Good Times and Michael. The argument goes, look, she had the gift bags. She offered Michael that she would contact ColourPop, do some sort of groundwork and legwork, and Michael said, oh no, I'll handle that. So the question arises, isn't the fact that she offered to do that indicative of the fact that maybe it really all boils down to it being her fault and she has full responsibility, which she can't slide out of because she offered to make sure that some of the minutiae of the event was taken care of, such as the gift bags? I have to tell you, I don't agree. It's very tempting to make someone the ogre in this sort of situation. At some point, you have to trust and rely on other people. You can't do the whole thing yourself. Let me give you an example. Sometimes I have stuff that needs to be filed in court. I sign it, I give it to my secretary. My secretary has to contact the messenger service to make sure it's filed in court. If it isn't filed in court on time, it is my responsibility. Just legally, that's a fact. But morally and ethically, I can't physically take the time out to stuff the envelope and take it down to court myself. At some point, I have to rely on support staff. By the way, whenever this happens, I always take the blame. I don't believe in blaming the support staff or letting someone else take the fall. But I think it's reasonable for her to rely on Michael when he says he's going to do something, and I think it's not physically possible for one person to do everything and manipulate all the levers and turn on all the buttons and start all the keys. She has a producer and an event consultant for a reason. That's the reason. One question that I thought was sort of odd was whether some of the co-creators that were at the event bore any responsibility for the refunds. I don't think so. If you get invited to a barbecue, even if they ask you to bring dessert or a side dish, you go to the event, someone's hurt, or something happens, I don't think you're responsible for that. I think the host is. Obviously, if you brought something that made someone sick, that's a different story. But I don't see how these other creators could be held legally responsible because some event producer that Ms. Mongeau hired did or did not do his job. So I've expressed my opinion on the other creators and whether they're responsible. Some ask, well, this was really sort of ShaneCon, wasn't it? I mean, after all, there were a whole bunch of people that came just to see him. Apparently, this man doesn't do conventions or public appearances. So for many folks, it was the only chance for them to see one of their favorite YouTubers. And he was prominently featured. So the story goes, shouldn't he pay something out of his pocket to make things right? Let's understand there's a difference between what's legally right and what's morally right. I think it's perfectly appropriate for Shane to have done the 3-part video, which got a lot of views, earned a lot of money, and use that money as a gesture of goodwill to refund people who didn't get to go or who had other expenses. Or to take care of, for example, that one woman that was taken out on a stretcher and pay her medical bills. That's perfectly morally appropriate, the right thing to do. If that's what he did, he's a good person. That's what good people do. That's different than whether it's legally required, and I think he's not legally required, whether or not the Tanacon, in some people's minds, really was the ShaneCon. He has no reasonable expectation that this isn't going to go as planned, that the venue isn't the right size. He's just showing up for a friend. What are some of the remedies that could be applied beside the refunds? For example, should Ms. Mongeau provide free merchandise to her fans who attempted to attend Tanacon? Again, this is one of those moral versus legal questions. Not legally required, but probably would be a good idea to do, and I would advise her to do that if that's one way of helping to make things up to her fans and subscribers. Some have asked, does Ms. Mongeau have a case against Good Times and Michael? Bear in mind, we don't know whether Michael is the corporate alter ego of Good Times. I suspect it is, but I have no idea. Again, let's recall, anyone can sue anyone for anything. But if Ms. Mongeau refunded out of her own pocket to make things right with subscribers and attendees of Tanacon, I think she certainly could sue and have some meritorious case to pursue Michael for breach of contract, for a failure to perform services rendered, for possibly conversion, and if I gave it some thought, I could come up with a couple of other causes of actions. Remember though, he lives in a different state. Now you're going to have to sue in federal court. I don't know where Ms. Mongeau lives. Someone said Las Vegas. So she'd have to go to district court in Nevada, which is the federal court, and attempt to sue him. Or if she could prove that he'd done other conventions and Good Times had done other conventions in Las Vegas, then she might be able to sue him in Nevada State Court. So then the question becomes, how much money does he have? Is it liquid? Is it his parents? No one knows the answer to those things. It's even possible that if Ms. Mongeau successfully sues Good Times and or Michael in federal district court in Nevada, or proves that Good Times and or Michael had sufficient minimum contacts with the state of Nevada, for example, paying some payroll taxes there on behalf of Good Times employees, or leasing property, an office in Nevada to conduct business, or putting on conventions. That might be enough to show that he had minimum contacts with the state courts so that she could sue him in state court and hail him into court that way. Always remember, make sure if you're going to sue someone that they have some assets, because if it's the case that Good Times is Michael, if it's the case that Michael has no money of its own, it's all his parents, good luck collecting against the parents. Michael could also declare bankruptcy, and unless there was some exception to the bankruptcy laws, which I'm not going to get into a whole discussion of that here, probably don't apply, Ms. Mongeau could go through all that trouble, all that time, all those legal expenses, and still never see a dime. All of this brings me to the final issue, one that's simply my opinion and nothing else. Was she sincere in her apology, or was she perpetuating more of a scam? Again, just my opinion. We're dealing with someone who is self-involved, entitled, 19 years old, immature. You put all those things together, I don't think she was involved in a scam. I think she was an idiot. I think she was manipulated. I think, as she said, her ego, her desire and thirst for revenge, her spitefulness at understandably being hurt and being excluded from VidCon as a super duper whatever they are, which I get. All of us, many of us have been bullied in school, or we were the last picked for the team in dodgeball or whatever it was. We can relate to that. So I get that. But you don't, out of spite or ego, put on a convention to satisfy your own thirst for revenge. That's what this was. That doesn't mean that she was trying to scam people or fleece people out of their hard-earned money. I do think her apology was genuine, even though she gave you about an apology for 10 minutes and then went off for 40 minutes on Michael and Good Times, and then came back for about the last 10 minutes. I would phrase it as she's explaining why things went wrong, as opposed to not owning up to her part and her fault in this situation. It's regrettable she spent so much time going after him. It sort of undercuts the value of her apology. Also, I think it's not helpful when someone constantly exaggerates. I called him 10 million thousand times. I wished 100,000 times over this had never happened. You notice she did this over and over and over again. And this is the sign of someone who is verbally compensating for their insecurity by subtly, or not so subtly as the case when they hit you over the head with it so many times, trying to drive in the fact that she did everything she could. It wasn't her fault, but yet it was her fault. And the part that was her fault is not the fact that the venue was overbooked, not the fact that people waited outside and got burned, not the fact that there wasn't water or food, not the fact that the logistics were terrible, not the fact that, my God, did you see those security guards? They didn't seem to be providing too much security. None of that is her fault. What's her fault is the fact that the event even got started, which was born out of her animosity and her desire to get back at VidCon and show them that she could put on something that would rival them. That's what her fault and her part in it is. So I would have advised her to tone down the attacks on Michael in Good Times and just stick to what she was sorry for, clean her side of the street and let his alone. That's not what she did. But I really don't think she was trying to fleece her flock, as it were. Anyway, these are my thoughts on the whole Tanacon situation and her apology in video. If you like these kinds of videos, please click subscribe below. Push the little dingy to be advised of when there are new videos. I probably won't make a video until there's some sort of a scandal or legal issue to discuss. Find out what they eat and feed it to them. That's what Tana should have done. Thank you and good night.